There's probably no greater topic that comes up for us right now as leaders, and we're bombarded with it: AI. Tech, transformation, the human limitations with all of it, because we are the limitation after all, and the exponential technology advancements. It's everywhere for us. Please join me in welcoming Dan Watts, who's the CEO of US Signal, to the stage to share his perspective on this timely topic.
Thank you all very much for allowing me some time to chat with you today. You know, when Meredith and team first approached me about speaking today, I was flattered to be part of this great opportunity to speak with you all. And I was very excited about the fact that this is really a representation of my worlds colliding. So since I got out of the military in '99, I've spent about 27 years in digital infrastructure, so data centers and telecommunications. And then for the past 2.5 years, I have really spent a lot of my personal time, much to my wife's chagrin, building with AI. I am a very curious guy. It started to become really relevant, and I got very curious in building it. So I thought, well, what a great opportunity for me to talk about how my worlds are colliding, and then share that with our business community and a lot of my friends and neighbors. And that excitement endured for several weeks until about 2 weeks ago, when everybody started doing commencement speeches. And I don't know if you're tracking, but everybody that so much as breathed AI in a commencement speech, except for Wozniak, somehow he pulled it off, a miracle, at GVSU, everybody was booed for it. So I thought about that, and I was like, well, this is a divisive topic, so I need to acknowledge that this is a bit divisive, and people have differing opinions on both AI and data centers. And how do I handle that? And typically how I handle divisive topics is corny humor, and then I try to step back, detach, and make a plan about how to simplify things so that I can digest it and share it and explain it. We can come up with a solution. So I'm gonna hit you up first, loosen you up a little bit of corny humor, right? And the theme of simplification. So there's this comedian online, I think his name's Mike Goodwin. That's a bow tie comedy on Instagram, if you're curious. Tells a story about his grandmother. And his grandmother said that really you only have 2 things to worry about in life. Are you healthy or are you sick? And if you're healthy, you really don't have anything to worry about. But if you're sick, you only have 2 things to worry about. Are you gonna get better or are you gonna get worse? And if you're gonna get better, you really don't have anything to worry about. But if you're gonna get worse, you only have 2 things to worry about. Are you gonna live or are you gonna die? If you're gonna live, you don't really have anything to worry about. But if you're gonna die, you only have 2 things to worry about. Are you going to heaven or are you going to hell? If you're going to heaven, you really don't have anything to worry about, right? But if you're going to hell, you only have 2 things to worry about. Original or extra crispy. I think that AI is no different, by the way. And as a CEO, as leaders in our communities, you cannot put the toothpaste back in the tube, right? There are local language models, and we'll talk a little bit about what a large language model and an AI model is in a second. But there are local models that you can download. I have them on my laptop that can do 80 or 90% of everything that you think about when you think about ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, whatever your preferred AI tool is, right? You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's not going away. So as leaders, we really only have 2 options. You can either adopt AI and leverage it to grow your business, or you can ignore AI or reject AI. And I would say if you want to adopt AI, great news. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of ways to grow and scale your company. But if you're going to reject AI, I'd argue that you got 2 options, HVAC or roofing. Now, I say that a little tongue-in-cheek because we have seen a great resurgence in the trades, which I think is long overdue, and it's a phenomenal thing. These are highly deserving pay raises for these jobs, a lot of it driven on the back of this massive CapEx spending that we're seeing on the data center side, on the hyperscaler side, $750 billion this year. But it is an interesting point because it demonstrates for us, right, when we say HVAC, roofing, plumbing, why do people think about these as shielded from AI? Well, because it requires unique human capabilities, manual dexterity, combined with problem solving, combined with real-time work, right? We still are unique in that respect. And I can tell you that that's not going to change very broadly. Mark Cuban, sticking with my theme of 2s, like Mark Cuban said, he posted this back in December, there are going to be 2 types of companies in the future. those that are great at AI, and those that used to be in business. I firmly believe this, and I think this applies to HVAC and roofing too, by the way. I can see a future where an HVAC technician comes out to troubleshoot, augmented by the capabilities that AI will provide for them to do a better job, right? So nothing's gonna be untouched. And I would also state that all of the draconian news that you hear about the job apocalypse happening likely isn't gonna be the case either, and I'll talk you through that. But first, before we get into the details on that, I know this group has a varying level of understanding as it relates to technology, right? Some of us are very technical and are geeked out on it. Some of us are not technical at all. And given it's such a wide range of understanding in the building, I would like to just make sure that we level set so that we're singing from the same hymnal when we say things like AI and machine learning. What does that mean, right? So I'll try not to bore those of you who are technical to death with something that's too light, and I'll try not to drag those of you who aren't technical at all into the weeds so deep that it's not useful for you. But I just want to, at a 30,000 foot level, cover what AI is. AI runs in two phases, right? Artificial intelligence runs in two phases. Training, which is where the models learn, right? It's this massive compute, massive data, months of work, episodic work that happens in these very large data centers. Think 100 megawatts plus up to a gigawatt in these data centers. We'll talk more about the data center types in a second. Training, when you hear about AI in the news today, really this is what mostly what they're talking about. It's the training of these large language models. Now, model, henceforth in this conversation, is going to be reflective of a large language model, which is, pick your flavor. There's like 5 foundational models in the US. They're in an arms race, and they leapfrog each other in terms of capability, but it's Grok XAI, it's Anthropic with Claude, it's OpenAI with ChatGPT, it's Google with Gemini, and Meta with their Llama models, right? Those are the 5 foundationals. That's where all the CapEx spending's happening. That's where these big data centers are coming from. Microsoft's in that game. Oracle's in that game as well, right? So you think about training, that is what it is. It's the episodic training. It's where the models are born, right? Inference is when we begin to use those models. Very simply put, inference is where we take those models and begin to use the output to solve problems. Solve business problems, to find a recipe at home, whatever it is you want to do with it. That's where you're using it. It's called inference. This is where the models do their work. This is the bigger phase of AI. This is a phase that will last in perpetuity, and it's going to run 24/7 by 365 forever. And this is the biggest portion of AI, but it's the portion that's the least talked about today because everybody's so hyper-focused on these training models. So we good there? Everybody understands 2 phases, training and inference? Those happen in 2 different kinds of data centers. Now, between us, there are more than 2 types of data centers, but because I got a theme of 2, we're going to talk about 2 types of data centers today. And those 2 data centers are hyperscaler and edge, right? Hyperscaler data centers are the factories of AI. When I tell you it happens in an episodic way, that it's incredibly compute demanding and power intensive, we're talking about hyperscaler. When you hear data center in the news, if you hear it on the news, which is on the news every day now, and I hear the wildest things about my industry, it's so fascinating to watch it happen on CNBC. The hyperscalers are what they're talking about, right? And these are the AI factories where you've got 100 megawatt plus up to a gigawatt now of power. You've got tens of thousands of GPUs running. But the best way to kind of illustrate this is give you a quick anecdote. So Claude, if you're a Claude user, if any of you do, you could feel the strain. They've had the most insane growth of any company that's ever existed, honestly, literally ever. And you could feel, as a user, you could feel the strain of that. Claude was having problems. It was failing here and there, and it's like, what's going on with Claude? Well, it turns out they had a compute issue. We knew that, they just didn't admit it. And they struck a deal with XAI about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, to take down their first. XAI has built multiple data centers. Their first one was 300 megawatts, and I think it has 220,000 NVIDIA chips in it, right? And Grok has moved on to the next data center that's got better chips and bigger chips and faster and more power to train their next model. And so they had all this excess compute hanging around. They offered it to Anthropic, and Anthropic is paying for that old data center, Colossus from XAI, $1.25 billion a month to lease it. So that gives you a little bit of the scale, right? It helps you understand that when we say hyperscaler, we're talking about that. Edge is your friendly neighborhood data center that's existed forever that you've really not noticed, right? It's US Signal. We own 17 of these. So historically, they've served our customers for cloud, either private, public, hybrid cloud, co-location, the secure facilities. but our largest facilities are 20 megawatts or less compared to 100 megawatts plus, right? And these are geared for, historically they've been geared toward cloud. Moving forward, they're going to be geared toward inference. And we're starting to see our customers deploy inference workloads in those clouds today, meaning they're taking the outputs of those models and they're starting to leverage them to do real work. So we've got liquid to the chip deployments that are very preserving of water and things of that nature that we're deploying in those data centers to serve those customers, and we're watching that evolution happen. Edge data centers are important because they provide low latency. And when you're using the model, when you're training it, latency doesn't really matter. The speed at which you gather and receive and exchange the data doesn't really matter. But when you're using it every day, it starts to matter. So that's why we have our 17 data centers spread across the US, tied together with our fiber network where we control the latency, right? So that's the difference. That's a hyperscalers are the big machine learning. Edge is what you'd think of historically as a cloud data center, and moving forward as an inference data center. Everybody good? All right. So with that, now we've all got a base understanding of what AI is and the phases in which it runs. We have to decide, sticking with our theme of twos, does AI provide us with great promise, or does it provide us with great peril, right? The choice is really yours. Is it an opportunity, or is it a challenge? Again, we talked about it earlier. There is no putting the toothpaste back in the tube, right? So how are you going to deal with it, right? And we can't stick our heads in the sand and act like it's going to go away, because it's not. And as leaders, we need to lead into this. We need to make sure that we make an impact with the change in this and that we lead through it. So the promise is it's the biggest productivity revolution in a generation, arguably ever, right? Might be the biggest technology transformation ever. And every knowledge worker will be augmented. Every decision will be made faster, and our companies will grow at a hyperbolic pace. That's the promise. The peril is massive job displacement. Whole professions are wiped clean by machines. In 3 years, we're not sitting here, we're all sitting at home on universal basic income, wondering what it was we used to do 5 days a week, right? That's the peril, right? I would argue with you, back to my point about stepping back, detaching, and understanding the environment. When I do this, I try to just look at only fact and data, strip the emotion out. What's the fact and data? I can tell you that it's not as perilous as one might think. So there's a reality check here, and it looks like my slide might be misordered, but 10 years ago, I'm going to give you 3 cases about jobs, because that's the thing you hear the most, like it's going to wipe jobs clean. So I just want to fact and data about what's happening today with jobs. Reality check is, I'm going to talk about 3 areas. I'm going to talk about radiology, I'm going to talk about kids getting jobs out of college, and I'm going to talk about coding, right? 10 years ago, some great AI prognosticator who's an expert said, in 10 years, we will not need radiologists, because deep learning and machine learning and big data is going to do it so much better than they are, we won't need them anymore. He was partially right. The prediction was we won't need them, but what has actually happened in reality is that 10 years later, we're in a radiology shortage. And why is that? Because now, he's right, because AI can produce a better outcome than a radiologist. It's statistically better at initial imaging diagnosis. But what it's done is created a lot more data that flows through the system. And you know what we still need? We still need that human discernment, the EQ to go talk to a patient about their results, either good or bad. We need all the soft stuff that happens with a human. And then we need the capability to think through the very complicated next steps of what to do with those images. So now radiology jobs have gone up, and we've got a shortage. You hear about kids getting jobs out of school. Oh, my kid's not going to be able to get a job. AI is going to take all the entry-level jobs. It might not affect older workers, but it's for sure going to affect the kids. Well, this year, 77% of kids out of college got their first job within 3 months. That's up, I think, 14% from the year before, where there was a 63%. So right now, I'm not saying it won't have an impact. I'm just saying right now, fact and data would say that it's not, right? Unemployment, by the way, is historically low right now in the United States. And then this is the most interesting use case. So because I only have a limited amount of time here, and because I want to share so much with you, I'm very fortunate that in my world, I get to talk to a lot of very smart people all the time, on both sides, experts on digital infrastructure and in AI. And I love to share it. I love to share that information with friends and with colleagues and with my community, because we're all going to have to leverage that data to manage this change, and sharing is caring in that concern, right? The better we can share together, the better we can manage this huge change. So I built a companion app. I tell you all that to say I built a companion app that you'll see at the end of this presentation this weekend. I built it this weekend. And I coded it myself, just me and ChatGPT. And it might have cost me $60, but whatever, in usage. But I built that in a weekend. And it's the least complicated app that I've built in the last 2.5 years. And I build an app for everything. Just ask my wife. She's tired of looking at them. I build apps for everything because it has democratized the way that you code, right? I'm a phenomenal coder and I'm horrible because it's so good. So if that's the case, if it's so good at coding that a guy like me can create this website on the weekend or much more complicated apps over the last couple of years, we won't need coders anymore. Why are we going to need them if it's so good at it? Well, in fact, coding jobs are going up and going through the roof. If you look at any of the foundational LLMs, go to OpenAI's website or go to Anthropic's website, guess what they're hiring? Developers. Software engineers, right? This tells you that through 2034, we're expecting a 15% increase in software engineering. So if it's so good at that, why do we still need people? Because humans still need to be in the loop for every decision, and that's not going to change. So with that, I would argue that AI doesn't replace expertise. It's very smart, but it doesn't replace expertise fully. It only raises the ceiling on what we can produce. And if that's the case, if your people are suddenly twice as capable as they were before, the question for us as leaders becomes, what are we going to do with the growth, right? So I want to leave you with a practical guide for decisions that we need to make as leaders for AI adoption. Now, many of you are far down this road, and some of you may have not started this journey yet. But these are the 7 distinct steps with 2 action items per step, sticking with my theme of 2s, that every business is going to need to take in order to fully leverage AI in the future. And I'll walk you quickly through these. The first one is your data. You need to clean it, and you need to democratize it. Bad data in, bad data out has been historically true, and that nothing has changed with AI. It does not make your bad data go away. So you need to make sure that your data is accessible and it's clean. When I say democratize it, like what does democratize it mean? Historically, we've had all of our business data trapped in these monolithic, archaic systems that it's very hard to leverage outside of that system itself. You need to democratize that data in a way that it sits in a data lake somewhere that you can call it from any of the applications by any individual employee or any agent that you build associated with that in terms of agentic deployment. So you need to clean your data and democratize it. You need people. This is the big, I'm telling you, this is the big one. We're on the front end of this at US Signal. We are leaning in to the change. But the hardest part of it is not the technology. Technology is incredible. It's change management. It's user adoption. It's how do we get our people to leverage this and feel comfortable with it. So the best way to do that, you skill your people, you train them, and then you empower them to use the technology. So data and people. Platform. What's a platform? It's just how you access your data, and it needs to be secure, and it needs to be connected. Again, with inference, right? Latency is important. Speed in which you collect. So if you've got a company and you've got your small language model or you've got your instance of AI that you're using somewhere close to you in a data center, it's going to need to be quick connections so that your employees aren't sitting around all day waiting on the response, right? So you need to secure your platform and connect it. From a governance perspective, if you've got your data secured and connected, you need to put guardrails on acceptable uses for your teams, right? You need to say, this is when you can and when you can't leverage these tools. This is when you can take our company data outside of our environment, and this is where you need to leave it inside of our environment. You need to be very clear about that because it is risky out there in the world to lose your data, and companies have done that. And then you need to drive accountability against that. Next thing is adoption. Right? I found the best way to start engaging with this technology is to put your hands on a keyboard and begin to build something. And if you're curious as how to do that, pick your favorite LLM and ask it. It'll tell you. It's a pretty smart thing. So just how do I build this? And you can start having a conversation. Use it like a reasoning partner. But pilot those at an individual level, but understand that when you go to scale them for an enterprise level, it's a completely different animal. Like what I can vibe code on the weekend is dangerous, but pushing that into a production app in our business requires a team of very smart people who have a lot of experience in software design and security to ensure that I'm not breaking things or opening security holes that will put us at risk. So you need to pilot things, let your team pilot things, and then figure out how to put your framework in place that allows you to scale that as a business. Process, this is a big one. You need to map it. What does it look like today? and then redesign it for what does it look like today and what is it going to need to look like tomorrow, when every step in that process could either be a person augmented by an agent or an agent, right? And you want to make that optionality, you want to create that optionality so that it exists, that you have that full optionality in the future, right? And then last but not least, and this is the most important one, is what we're here today to talk about. It's the biggest way you can make an impact is to own it, to lead from the front on this initiative. It's one thing to mandate something, to drive an edict to your business, but if you're not leading from the front, if you're not trying the technology, if you don't understand what you're talking about when you ask your teams to lean into something, you're not going to get your people empowered. You're not going to get them to buy in. You're not going to get them to adopt it if you're not leading from the front. And leadership has to start here. And the best thing that we can do for each other in that process is share. Again, I'm part of several AI roundtables. It's great to get in a cohort of other leaders and discuss how you're embracing in your business and talk about how they're embracing in theirs, because this is new to everybody. We are in the earliest innings of the biggest technology transformation that's ever happened, and we need to help each other through it. So I'll leave you with this. You're thinking, that's easy for him to say. All that sounds great. You know, he gave us the template, but he's been coding for 2 or 3 years, building with AI for 2 or 3 years, and he spent a career in digital infrastructure. It's easy for him. That's true, but there are people that have been doing AI for 10 years, 2 to 5 times longer than me. And there are people that have been in the digital infra side of the business 10 or 15 years longer than me. And that doesn't make me not want to start. I can tell you that with anything good, and as you think about how to tackle big challenges and big opportunities, with anything in life, whether it's fitness or something like this, there are two times to start something. The best time to start something was yesterday, and the second best time is today. So please feel to reach out if I can be of any help. I would love to chat with you about this. I'm clearly passionate about it. But if you're not already started, let's leave here today and go get started. Thank you all very much.